What time is it? Tell me what time it is! That's right, it's wrestling time. Welcome to Call It in the Ring, a wrestling recap and discussion with yours truly, Marcus Stewart. We are talking about Smackdown Live, July 24th, 2018, on the road to SummerSlam. But first, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also download and subscribe to the show on iTunes. Just search for Marcus Writes About Games. You can also do the same on Podbean. Search for the same name. And you'll get automatic updates on this show as well as other video game related podcasts. But let's hop right to it. First up, we had The Miz and his lovely wife Maurice pulling it to the arena with baby Monroe Sky in tow, because that night was the big premiere, the long-awaited premiere of Miz and Mrs. The Miz and Maurice's new reality show, which was set to premiere after the conclusion of Smackdown Live, and they were there to have a big premiere celebration, which would close the show. So we got to just see them show up in a nice limo and, you know, just grace us with their general presence. But Randy Orton comes out to the ring, and he explains his actions of recent weeks. Why has he chosen to target Jeff Hardy and deliver beatdown after vicious beatdown? And he says that despite all the rumors of why it could be, whether or not it was unfinished business with Jeff or being mad at that SmackDown ranking, that I don't know why we're still talking about that dumb thing, but it was not that. It was all of us, the fans. It was our fault. We turned our backs on Orton. And then Orton goes into a very good rant about how he is the lone survivor, or the lone remaining superstar of his era, that ruthless aggression era that came into the company, at least beginning in 2002, which is when Orton debuted. Which is technically true, I guess. Shelton Benjamin's there too. He would be in that class, but Shelton's been gone for years. I think Orton's the only consistent guy that's been there. Because Cena is part-time now. We haven't seen him in a while, and I guess, and Brock is he is also of that class, but same deal. He is part-time, so I guess he technically doesn't count. So yeah, Orton would be the lone consistent guy. He's been here for 16 years, and he says that despite that, the fans don't show him respect. Is it because he's not an indie darling, or that he doesn't jump off high things and try to kill himself for our amusement, or that he didn't steal a hand sign to make and try to act cool, referring to the Too Sweet that Balor as well as Gallows and Anderson use? And he says, despite turning in all these great performances for us, we have decided to not like Randy or not show him the respect he feels he deserves. So he says, you know what, screw you guys. I'm going home. Well, he doesn't say that he's going home, but screw you guys. And he declares that from this day forward, he is going to systematically destroy all of our fan favorite wrestlers, beginning with Jeff Hardy. And this was a good opening segment. Orton, as a bad guy, has always been best for business. As they say, he is a natural villain, because even when he's a good guy, he's not a good guy, and that he's not a good person. So I'm always a fan of psychotic villain Randy Orton. He excels at that. So let's bring it on. Especially against someone as so likable as Jeff Hardy. Like their first feud, which, man, that was a decade ago, wasn't it? Or over a decade, really. Time flies. I feel old. They're a perfect antithesis to each other. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Jeff was not on the show tonight, probably trying to get those ears addressed. He's gonna show up next week in a big ear, like an ear cast. Anyways, our first match of the night: Rusev versus Andrade Cien Almas, with Lana and Zelina Vega in their respective men's corners. And this was a nice match. Rusev was the face in this, which I'm a fan of face Rusev. He has the charisma, he's got the fan support, and he just works as like just this, like a big, powerful, good guy with a semi-goofy gimmick. I don't know. I was really feeling him in this role, and it's something that feels long overdue given how much people have been wanting to cheer for him, like to really get behind him for the last several months. So I hope this sticks. But we had Lana and Zelina get into it at ringside, get physical, which brought out Aiden English to try to break it up. He was just trying to help. He had good intentions, but alas, it caused a big distraction, which caused Andrade to hit his hammerlock DDT on Rusev to pick up a big win. Nice little rebound from losing to AJ last week, which, didn't hurt him. It's not going to hurt you to lose to the WWE champion, especially when it's the best wrestler in the world. But, it like I've been saying before, they seem to be positioning Andrade as a big player, as they should, because Andrade's one hell of an act, as is Vega. So pinning the man that was most recently the number one contender for the WWE Championship is a big deal for him, as well as it advances the Rusev English breakup, it seems. So I'm happy with this result all around. Backstage, RTruth reminded us that he exists by getting hyped up with his match with Samoa Joe with some help from Ty Dillinger, who is not far behind Truth in the "hey, I am still here in this mortal plane" category. And that's about it. He says, "I am going to fight Joe. I'm excited. Let's do it." This transitioned to another backstage argument between English and Lana as they debate who is responsible for screwing up that match. Rusev yells at both of them, saying that maybe neither of them are good enough to be around Rusev, which is interesting. I guess, he can't technically, I guess he could dump his wife, but I doubt that's going to happen. But it's this whole split triangle thing. I'm curious to see where it goes. I guess I feel like you could keep English with Rusev as a face, but I guess in the long run, Rusev will be better off on his own, or at least keep Lana, but English can't stick with him forever if he's gonna make a serious babyface run. So that seems to be, they're getting away from that now, it seems, which is, fine. This bounced right back. They've kind of been switching back and forth between Truth and Rusev and Truth. So we're back to Truth with his match against Samoa Joe. And RTruth came out. It was weird to hear Truth's rap, because apparently this was his first singles match since the WrestleMania pre-show. I'm not sure if he was hurt or they just haven't used him, but it felt odd to hear "What's Up" again. I don't know why. I think it's just because I haven't heard it in, it seems like, years, even though I guess it's technically been only months. New lyrics. Truth got some tighter pants, kind of looks like Elias, actually. And he started off pretty hot. In like the first 30 seconds or so of offense, he was looking pretty good, much like Ty Dillinger did last week. But just like last week, Samoa Joe remembered, oh, wait, I'm fighting RTruth. And then proceeded to beat the crap out of Truth and choke him out with a coquina clutch. Once again, Samoa Joe looks like a winner. And stay tuned, because that is not the last time we see a Mr. Samoa Joseph tonight. But first, we had to take it to Asuka backstage, who was really, really, really excited for Evolution, the all-women's pay-per-view that was announced on Raw the previous night. Again, much like Raw last night, you heard a lot of Evolution being name-dropped by various superstars, which, again, understandable, because it's a big deal and they want everyone to know, but it's that WWE way of really just hammering it into your head somewhat incessantly. So it makes even a legitimately cool announcement, you get annoyed with it after a while, because you've heard it so many times. You're like, okay, I get it. I know. Which, is the point. I'm never going to forget that Evolution is October 28th because of it. So it works, which is the most annoying part about it. It's man, it's super annoying, but I have it ingrained in my brain, so it's effective. So there's no reason to stop doing it, at least in their eyes. So it's like, damn it. It's like, damn it. They got me there. So, but yeah, she's going to kill Billie Kay, Asuka, which led to her match against Billie Kay, one half of the Iconics. And this was a very short match, and it was just that. Asuka murdered Billie Kay to the horror of her best friend Peyton Royce. And the end of the match was actually kind of sick. Like, just a series of really stiff kicks to the head. Like, just knocked the crap out of Billie Kay. Gave Asuka the quick win. She desperately needed something like that. The Iconics could use a win as well, but they can bounce back just by cutting a really, jerky promo, and they'll be fine thanks to how entertaining their characters are. Asuka needs to look like a killer for like almost at all times. So this was a reminder, like, hey, no one's ready for Asuka. Hopefully she can rebuild some momentum, because this 2018 has not been kind to Asuka since her amazing match against Charlotte at WrestleMania. So we'll see where she goes. Actually, you know what I was thinking about? I have a good idea of where she goes, actually, before we move on, is that if I know WWE, I would not be surprised if they copy and paste Ember Moon's booking as of late and just applied it to Asuka, and that she'll have a random feud with a women's tag team, whereas, like, Ember on Raw has been kind of having this random feud with the Riot Squad that's going nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised to see Asuka do the same with the Iconics, where she's just trading wins with each of them back to back without actually going anywhere and having really any semblance of actual storytelling. So I hope that doesn't happen, but a part of me feels like that's what we're going to be in for, because I'm not sure how Asuka figures into SummerSlam at this time. So hopefully I'm wrong, but there just simply might not be anything for her at this point. So anyways, we got Nakamura, Shinsuke Nakamura, our United States champion, just mocking Jeff Hardy, and in particular his ear issues. He's saying, do you hear me, Jeff? And you look like a clown, and Jeff Hardy. And then he actually warns Randy Orton as well, which I like. I like when because Randy has said that he's going to come after everyone and that Jeff is just the first target. And Randy did call out Shinsuke during his destruction of Jeff last night. And also, he wasn't that long ago that Randy himself was the U.S. champion. So you would imagine he wouldn't mind having that back. So it makes sense that Nakamura would not just immediately forget that Randy exists just because the story has shifted from Jeff and Nakamura to Randy and Nakamura, or Randy and Jeff. So it went from Jeff and Nakamura to Jeff and Randy. So what I'm trying to say, I talk for a living, and I like that Nakamura, a lot of times superstars just kind of like have their memories wiped when a feud no longer involves them and they just move on. So I like that he issued a brief warning to Randy saying like, oh, Viper strike, but I strike back. Just a really quick thing of like, okay, I like that. I don't know. It's a nice touch of realism. Like, hey, I heard what you said earlier tonight. Don't come at me, bro, unless you want to get your head kicked off. So I'm curious if that is going to become a three-way for the title, because I'm not sure what Nakamura who steps up to challenge him. I would imagine Nakamura will compete at SummerSlam, and particularly to put that title on the line. So, I mean, the quick solution would be, Jeff, Orton, Nakamura. But if Jeff and Orton do, since that feud seems pretty personal now, if it just becomes those two, they would need to find Shinsuke an opponent ASAP. So, we'll see. We'll see. Speaking of matches being made for titles, Paige brings out AJ Styles to name his opponent for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam in a big contract signing. Paige, of course, first mentions Evolution and how it's the best thing ever. AJ comes out, does the same. Again, fine. But, like I said before, it's you hear it a lot. AJ says he's ready for whoever he faces because he's had his last two SummerSlams have been great. He stole the show with Cena in 2016, and then he won the United States Championship last year against Owens. So he's on a bit of a roll. I believe he won last year, Owens, right? That was when the feud ended. They kept trading that U.S. title back and forth so many times last summer. I'm pretty sure SummerSlam was when that was the blow off and AJ won. If I remember correctly. Yeah, because that's when Shane McMahon was the ref and kind of sort of cost Owens the match, and then that kicked off their feud in earnest. So yeah, AJ's 2-0 at SummerSlam. So, but before, as Paige brings out AJ's opponent with a big drum roll and everything, it turns out to be... Should I do a drum roll? I'm going to do a drum roll. James Ellsworth! Okay, not really, but James Ellsworth did come out to interrupt and say that he should be the one that gets the shot because he is the best and he has also beaten AJ Styles 3 times in the past, which is true 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago. And of course, Paige is really annoyed with James, saying, you know, kind of get the hell out of here, basically. And James makes the fatal mistake of making fun of Paige's looks and her accent, and pretty much saying that she's garbage, she sucks. And Paige responds by firing James right on the spot. You're fired. I've got a nice British Vince McMahon. You're fired, which brought out security to literally carry James out of the arena, kicking and screaming. Paige follows him to the back. She tells AJ to just wait in the ring. I'll be right back, which is just kind of a weird thing to do. We see on the Tron James get carried out of the arena and then literally kicked out the door on the butt by Paige. As AJ is watching all of this in the ring, guess who runs in to attack Mr. Styles? I'll give you a hint. He's big, he's bad, he's Samoan, and he has wrestled AJ many times in the past. Roman Reigns. Okay, no. Though that is true, Roman Reigns would fit the same description, but Samoa Joe. AJ's good buddy from his TNA indie days. Samoa Joe runs in, chokes AJ out, signs the contract, and yes, we are going to get it. Styles versus Joe for the first time in WWE for the WWE Championship, no less, and at the second biggest show of the year, no less. Yes, 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 I'm pumped. I've been dying to see these two go at it in a WWE ring. I think I've mentioned this before. I was a TNA fan for many years until about the Hogan Bischoff era, so I've watched a lot of their battles from, I guess, a decade ago at this point. Those two always worked really well together, and even though they're older now, they're better than they were back then just because they have years of experience. So I really want to see what a more experienced modern Joe versus Styles match will look like in a WWE ring. Hopefully it lives up to the hype, unlike the WrestleMania match between Shinsuke and AJ, which wound up just kind of being okay. I mean, this already has a better chance because it's at least a heel versus face and has a story and a lot of history behind it. So, I mean, not that Nakamura and AJ didn't have history, but, you know, it was face versus face, and that's really hard to book in terms of interest. This just has more substance to it. So, and Joe's awesome. Joe is an amazing heel. AJ is such a great, besides being a great performer, AJ is the perfect, he's just a great face champion, which is why his reign has been very long. He's had the longest reign since CM Punk's crazy reign back in 2012 to 2013, or 2011 to 2013, which was great. And Styles works because he's so likable, but like he's not a cheesy baby face. Like he's a tough guy, badass face who also happens to be the best wrestler in the world, arguably. So he can hold that thing, and nobody really gets tired of it because he's so consistently good, and he hasn't done anything stupid or been booked badly. He just goes out and wrestles a great match and keeps winning when it counts. So, and you know, people respect him. I think that's another big thing, is that people genuinely respect AJ, and he's universally regarded as a great. So his title reign has been a success in that front. Like, it's made that title, after spending the last year really getting hot potatoed at one point, AJ has been able to really lift that thing, the title, to a much needed kind of back to its pedestal, so to speak. Hopefully all of that made sense. I ramble on this show because it's calling in the ring. I'm calling it as I go. It's a lot of stream of consciousness thinking. So, but yeah, AJ versus Joe. Unfortunately, it probably won't be the main event because, again, it's a SmackDown match and Raw always goes on last because that's just the unwritten rule. No matter how crappy the Raw main event is, it's just going to go last, even though the WWE Championship is a lot more prestigious than the Universal Championship. And Styles versus Joe features two people that the fans like, and it's a match that hasn't happened yet in WWE and has more interest and would get a better reception than Reigns versus Lesnar 4 or 5, whatever we're up to at this point, with two guys that the fans are very much disgruntled with, and their last few matches have been pretty garbage. So it's going to be sad to see that close the show over Styles versus Joe. But what can you do with modern WWE thinking? So, at least we're getting it. But Joe and Paige went backstage, got into a little bit of a shouting match about what happened. Carmella comes up and to complain to Paige about firing James. Paige tells Carmella to just buy a new boyfriend if Mella is money, which is a pretty good line. And then Carmella went out for her match against Becky Lynch, and the stipulation is that if Becky Lynch won, then Carmella will have to defend the title, her SmackDown Women's Championship, against Becky at SummerSlam. And Carmella tried as hard as she might. She tried to cheat, tried to get out of the match, held her own, but it was Becky Lynch picking up the win via the disarm her, and Carmella tapped her way to a title defense against her. So good for Becky. I hope she wins the SummerSlam. Well deserved. I've always been a fan of Becky, and the fans have been behind her this year in a big way. So it'll be a nice moment to see Becky finally get back to the mountaintop should she win at SummerSlam. Next up, we had Sanity taking on the New Day in our traditional tag match 2-on-2. And it's the first match in a tag team tournament to determine who will face the Bludgeon Brothers for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships at SummerSlam. And representing Sanity was Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane. Representing New Day, Xavier Woods and Big E. Eric Young and Kofi, of course, outside on the floor. And then we also had the Usos on commentary being all entertaining, as they usually are. They did their nice Byron impersonation or just general dorky commentator impersonation, like oh my god, Big E hits a belly to belly suplex, I can't believe it, oh what a maneuver, just doing like just really condescending voices like that, which is always nice. Somewhat surprisingly, New Day picks up the win in a weird way, because Eric Young tries to interfere in this match by he goes up top to hit some sort of like top rope double team maneuver, which it was in front of the ref for like half of it, and I was like, well, if you do that, you're gonna lose the match for your team, so get disqualified. So I don't know if that's supposed to serve as some sort of distraction for Wolf to come in, or whoever was legal or whoever. But yeah, I was like, that's kind of weird. But it did not work. Kofi prevented it, which allowed Woods and Big E to hit the midnight hour on Alexander. And they have advanced in the tournament, and they will face the winners of next week's match, which will be the Usos versus The Bar. You guys remember The Bar, right? Sheamus and Cesaro? We haven't seen them since, I think, May? Was the last time they were on SmackDown TV? I don't know why, either, because as far as I know, neither of them were hurt, and I think I heard they were, like, wrestling on, like, main event or whatever, which why haven't they been featured? That was just weird that they've been gone this long. But they did reappear at the end of this match. They came out on the stage and pretty much just cut a little promo saying like, hey, we're back and we're gonna win. We're gonna beat the Usos and we're gonna become tag team champions again. Good to see The Bar. I think I would like to see them face the Bludgeon Brothers, if nothing else, for a fresh match. We've seen both the Usos and the New Day wrestle them, and though both combinations are good and always deliver, I would like to see a good old-fashioned just power, because two power teams and two very good power teams in the Bludgeons and Cesaro and Sheamus could be a really fun, just like Smash Mouth, just brawl of a match. So surprisingly, I'm pulling for the bar in this tournament, which didn't think I'd ever say that. So, and then this led to our main event of the evening. Our main event in terms of like the final segment. That match was technically the main event, but we had the Miz and Maurice come out to brag and talk about Miz and Mrs. Premier. Before that, they ran into Paige backstage and were yelling about how they were supposed to have a babysitter for Monroe Sky. And then Paige said, "I found one," and it was Sin Cara. And Sin Cara comes up and is like, "Hey, I'll watch your kid." Miz declines because babysitters shouldn't wear masks, which, yeah, I probably agree with that. That'd be kind of creepy and potentially traumatizing for the kid, especially Sin Cara. He's got those crazy contacts in his eyes too. So, yeah, I don't think I would leave him with him either. So they decided to bring Monroe out to the ring. She's strapped to Miz's chest, those like baby chest carriers, like a kangaroo. And you know they got the full deal. They've got a velvet rope with two bouncers in front of the ring, and they just kind of go out and just brag about like Miz and Mrs. starts tonight. We're the best. Daniel Bryan sucks. He's the worst. And then Miz goes to show an exclusive clip of the show, but it was not the clip that he thought it was. It was actually a ruse. It was clips of Miz's less savory moments in WWE in his career. To make fun of him. Obviously, it was Daniel Bryan that did this, but the clip package was funny. You know, you saw some stuff like his old Miz days, like when he wore the shorts and the hat. And even further back than that, when he first debuted, when he was doing the "Hoorah!" that ridiculous catchphrase that he had. And of course, we had to see the infamous botch where he during the Diva Search on Raw, where he was the host and had to give out the phone number that people had to call in to vote for who would win, and he forgot the number on live TV and was like awkwardly trying to figure out what it was, including reading it on his wrist that I guess he had written down, just blatantly reading it on his wrist. And stuff like that, him getting beaten up by Rock, Austin, Roman Reigns knocking him out, just a low light reel, not a highlight reel, a low light reel. And Bryan pops up on screen, pretty much says, "Gotcha." And he's like, "You know what? While I'm back here, I should come in the ring and talk to you face to face." So he comes out. Miz's two bouncers try to stop him. Unfortunately, they are not able to stop a 5'9", 8 man. Bryan kicks the crap out of him, gets into the ring, but then in a deception befitting the Miz that would make broken Matt Hardy proud, it turns out he throws the baby to Daniel Bryan, and it turns out that the baby is not real. It is not a real baby. It is a fake baby, a baby doll. He straight up Matt Hardy's that baby, throws it at Bryan. As Bryan is confused, Miz hits the skull crushing finale to end the show. And the somewhat annoying way that this ends is that he hits this thing, Bryan's down, Miz and Maurice are all smiles and like, "Ha, we got you," twirling their mustaches, and they're walking away. And then the announcers are, instead of kind of ending with like, "Oh no, Bryan's down, how will Bryan respond?" They just talk about Miz and Mrs. is up next, and they even had a countdown on the screen during like the last few minutes of this segment, letting you know like, "Hey, it starts in about a minute 30." And you're like, okay, like it just became this weird commercial, which kind of took away the impacts and made you kind of think like, oh, I guess we don't care about what Bryan just got beaten up, but screw that, we got to talk about the show, which fits for Miz and Maurice. They can talk about it because that's wonders to their show, and also it fits their characters because they're supposed to be like Hollywood douchebags. But like, I just didn't like literally the last thing you hear off the air is like, "Miz and Mrs. begins now," as Bryan is just like trying to collect himself in the ring. It's like, it doesn't really at least set up the story for next week of like how will Bryan respond. Surprisingly, we still have not gotten the official SummerSlam match made between these two. I kind of thought it would be tonight. I guess it'll be next week. But, regardless, you have to believe that those two are fighting at SummerSlam and what is easily the most well built up feud of that show, because it's literally been going on. I mean, at least in recent memory, since 2016. But in overall, they've been, they have literally Bryan's entire career, he's been linked to Miz and has hated him. So they have the biggest story going into SummerSlam when you really think about it. So I hope that match gets confirmed next week. That's going to be a hell of a match at SummerSlam, and one that I really didn't think we were ever going to actually get a blow-off to. So I'm excited. But yeah, this was a solid episode of SmackDown. We got SummerSlam advancement. We got 2 more matches made, and we got a tournament for one of the tag titles. And then, again, advancing Miz versus Bryan. And as well as Randy Orton with his new heel turn, which is needed because SmackDown and WWE in general is kind of in need of some legitimately big-time heels, because Samoa Joe is kind of the only one on SmackDown, or at least he was, until Randy turned, and they're clearly kind of building up Andrade for a top spot, and then Nakamura's there too, but Randy turning is necessary. So things are, again, looking a bit brighter on the blue brand, and we'll see how things shape up next week. So thanks for listening, everyone. You'll find me next Tuesday, where I'll have my Monday Night Raw review for coming in from Miami next week, my home state. Unfortunately, I'm not going to Raw, but my home state of Florida. You can see Brock Lesnar return, Ronda Rousey return, some more SummerSlam build, and we'll get to hear the word evolution about 57 more times. But until then, again, like, share, subscribe. Do the same on iTunes. Marcus Writes About Games, where you can find it, as well as Podbean under the same name, Marcus Writes About Games. And until next time, thanks for listening, wrestling fans. Have a good one. Adios.